All right. Thank you everyone for your patience. I'm Jaslyn Bay, the Group CEO of Blackstone Consulting. So I'll be moderating this session today. It's my pleasure to do so. So this is the agenda for today. As you can see in the screen, we will be having a short introduction of Startup Storm as well as the speakers. And then we'll go straight into the panel discussion. And then lastly, if you have any question to the speakers, feel free to list the question at the chat box and we will answer at the end of the session. Okay. Yeah. So about Startup Storm, Startup Storm is actually a platform where we actually designed to give access to a community of like-minded individual as well as like industry experts. So who can actually help, startup or people who want to actually set up their business to accelerate their business growth. We also have a diverse range of like content coming from like courses, podcasts, events, like what you are attending today, talks, some programs, as well as some interview clips from experienced entrepreneurs to share a little bit about their experience running a business itself. Okay. Okay, so today we are very excited to actually have a few talented experts with us today to share a little bit more about marketing. So this is our platform also list other few experts. So the first expert that will be sharing on this topic will be Ms. Jean Ted. Basically, Jean is actually the partnership director of Design Never Sleep, with a diverse expertise in sales, operation, and partnership management. So I'll leave the floor to Jean to actually share a little bit more about Design Never Sleep and herself. Yeah, Jean, please, thanks.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jean, the partner director of Design Never Sleeps, and I have 10 over years of experience in business development, business partnerships, sales and operations, and partner enablement. So I've also worked with late-stage startup in Singapore, and it's an IT SaaS company, which gotten 100 million investor funding. I've also worked with various SMEs and MNCs over my career. And so I'll reach over 7 years of experience, specifically in the IT industry, in sales operations. So specifically improving sales processes, so including sales planning, sales forecasting, etc. And just supporting on managing the sales. And as you know, in a business, sales is what drives revenue, right? So having a process-driven mindset to drive strategy and growth, through enablement of the sales teams and partnership collaboration. My academic background is in master's with applied finance and also bachelor degree in mathematics. So Design Never Sleeps. With my background, actually jumping into a brand and creative consultancy might seems a little very different, but my skill set is complementary with Rainy. So Rainy will introduce herself later on, but just a little bit, to share about what Design Never Sleeps is about and what we do. So we are a brand and creative consultancy that offers a full service creative and brand team for a flat monthly fee with 3 different price plan tiers. So that's just in a nutshell. And our company's mission is to unlock the potential of brands and ignite their growth on a global scale, and offering a comprehensive suite of brand strategy and design services to support our mission. And here's our approach to how we will work with you on your branding and creative strategy. So gaining clarity on your brand's visuals, values, and voice. So we will provide you with the analysis, your brand audit, and the assets, the design and creative assets that you will need. And that will be on a holistic level. That is our approach to working on with you on your brand and your branding and creative needs. Next, I'm passed on to Rainy.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah. Hi, Jaslyn. Hi, everyone. And hi, Jean, everyone else here. Thank you for joining on the call today. My name is Rainy. I'm currently based in New York City at the moment. I'm a Singaporean, so I've been in Singapore till I went to New York about a decade ago. I have 10+ years of experience as a creative director that's based here in the entertainment, music, and tech industry. So my forte is really like branding, motion graphics, graphic design, and specializing in events like luxury events and art direction for production houses. So in 2018, I'm very fortunate and honored to be labeled the fourth Global Art Director of the Year. So that's under this thing called the One Show. It's a very big and prominent awards show that's in the world in regards to my field. So I'm also very fortunate that I'm the 15th hire at Spotify New York City brand and creative team. So if you have seen Spotify like 8 years ago, it's very totally different from what it is right now, because we have our whole team to really spearhead it from a tech to what is now known as a culture-driven and music and entertainment company and brand. But it didn't used to be like that. It used to be a tech-based company. And because of that, I'm also working with Fortune 500 companies, clients such as Pepsi, Lexus, Audi, Stella Artois, Super Bowls, if anyone knows about it, under NFL, and Adidas. So, and last but not least, I am also 20 women to watch in last year, the year before, under Singapore Global Network. And here I am with Jean as my co-founder for Design Never Sleeps. Yeah, so here's just some of the projects that we cover and that we worked on before. So Best New Artist 2019, it's a Grammys party and Grammys awards every time during this time of the year. And we do mainly like motion graphic stuff, branding, all the way to event spaces, and really like try to create a concept and touch points on different parts, going from digital to physical spaces that you see over here, and even out of home billboards as well. So Jean has already talked about the work frame, and then this is the process that we just roughly go through. So how we would do is we usually work with the company and the brands to listen really carefully on what the kind of goals they're trying to set, even just clarifying with them and gathering. Then the next step is to gather the market research and insights. Our biggest point is to come up with a kind of like a different way of tackling two different markets. The reason why Jean is in Singapore and I'm based in New York is because we have this global entry of both sides of people who are brands that want to penetrate into both sides of the world. And then we're going to distill in the strategy with the plan of action, and then down to the design before we go into produce and launch. So now I'll pass on to Adrian to talk about his profile.
Thanks, Rainey. Hi, everybody. Lovely to meet you all online. So I'm Adrian. I have lived in Asia now for about over 11 years now, goodness. I've worked in Thailand, I've worked in Indonesia, I've lived in Singapore, and I'm actually back in Singapore now. Before that, I spent about 15 or 16 years working in London for companies like News Corporation, Virgin, even the UK government for a while. But regardless of where I am in the world and whoever my employer is or my clients are, I typically specialize in sort of creating and developing effective go-to-market strategies that predominantly focus on revenue growth, so making money, but also making profit, but also transforming business operations so that we actually still make more profit, profit being the watchword of today. So now I work for a company called Totally Awesome, which basically provides contextual digital marketing, which basically means we don't use cookies. Some of you might know that the cookies are going away because there's a big drive about privacy and safety these days. So the main way to sort of do digital marketing these days without retargeting people is through context and interests and that kind of stuff. So I work in that company now, leading the commercial strategy there. Previously, I've worked in companies like The Asian Parent or Parent Inc. It's a holding company where we raised double-digit $1 million for the brand called The Asian Parent. But outside of my day job, I like to work with a lot of smaller companies to help them become bigger companies, just providing sort of best practice, clear frameworks with a clear sort of passion on strategy, marketing, and revenue. One of the things that I really enjoy focusing on, and we'll probably touch on repeatedly today, I imagine, is I wrote the APAC sort of playbook for launching into gaming, so marketing in gaming, not actually writing games and playing games, and working with brands like Coca-Cola, Unilever, Nestle, and just helping people understand how to maximize new digital sort of opportunities as they arise. And now my favorite one of all time is AI. And what can we do with AI, and how can we make that more scalable and make businesses more efficient and make things work better and help us all make more profit. I'd love to meet you all.
Interesting. Thank you, speaker. So I actually known Adrian for quite a while. He's definitely a person to go to when you talk about gamification, which explain that background. Probably the favorite hobby that he has, advertising, database marketing, or even like connecting with the youth. So very interesting. And then thank you, Lady, for sharing. Very excited to actually hear a little bit more about the interesting happening in places like New York versus also like sort of like localizing it into Southeast Asia as a whole. I think that will be very interesting for everyone to actually hear about it. Okay, so in the age of the information overload, I think it's very hard to actually capture attention online. So what is actually authentic kind of engagement looks like in 2024. So this is a topic that we are going to talk about today: the art of digital engagement, trend and tactics. So let me switch off the the screen first, the share screen, and then we will just focus on the speakers right now. Okay. Let me start off with the first question. I think this is a question that probably surprised everyone. Since we are actually starting 2024, what was the main social media keyword or trendy text that actually left a greatest impression in your mind last year? Before we talk about 2024, let's talk about last year. What was the first word that you actually thought of in your mind when it comes to social media last year? So the audience can also feel free to share your thoughts. What is the first word that comes with your mind? Trendy tech. Adrian?
Maybe I can start first, or
Okay,
do you have anything to share? All right, okay. I'm so sorry I snatched your time. All right, I think last year the biggest, of course, will be AI, which actually Adrian talked about it. So Adrian, do you want to elaborate more?
Well, the thing that came up most of all in my head was ChatGPT, and how it was incredibly clever about stealing the marketing and the airtime, because there are many AI chatbots in the world, from Claude to Microsoft owns about 4 of them now, and they all run in parallel and they all do different things. A little bit confusing, actually, I think, because they've got Copilot, they now part own ChatGPT, they've got another one that name escapes me. They have a lot. But ChatGPT, before Microsoft invested in it, was the main one. And AI has been going for 10 years. Before it was AI, it was called machine learning. Before that, it was called something else. Amazon Turk was one of the ones originally, back when I was back in the UK and I had more hair, over a decade ago. But really, AI is the phrase that everybody is talking about now. And what does that mean? I mean, AI, you can really think of as in two buckets, right? And this is what becomes really interesting in social media, is it's either something that just goes and queries. So it's like really cool search. You go and query something, it just looks at stuff that's from the past and it's trying to guess what the next word is. So that's what we generally do with ChatGPT. The other one is predictive analysis. Now, that isn't necessarily ChatGPT, it's bits of, where it can look at stuff and actually forward project, which is fantastic in business modeling. But it's very, very different to what people generally are thinking of as AI. So ChatGPT, 100%, single biggest thing on social. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's using it. If you're not using it, you're missing out. If businesses aren't using it, that's probably not a great thing in these day and age, depending what it is. But even with that, you have to put guardrails around it and make sure that data doesn't leak and various other things, which you can drill into if people are interested. I know I'm fascinated by AI. I spent a year talking about it. So
yeah, Jean, AI, Adrian, ChatGPT. How about you, Rainy, as a creative?
Yeah. Well, it is. I have to go in the same vein, like Midjourney. I think that's the kind of things that's just been bouncing around in my field. That was because how generative AI has sort of taken us as creatives and creators by storm, really. Like it became like, okay, then do we come in being afraid of that coming in, or are we using that as sort of a add-on and assistance to how we create and how we do a creative process? So that was a huge talk in our field. And we also even have like Adobe to come in and chat about how to use the newest one, which is Adobe Firefly, and I think Adobe Express as well. And so those things are the biggest one in what we have so far. And the other thing, though, is also talking about experiential design. Last year, one of the buzzwords that has been going around is digital twins. So what digital twins is basically creating, let's say you have a prototype of a real life plane, for example, and to create that in digitally, where you can do the trial and error and testing on the digital version of it, having the same parameters as what it is in real life. And they're able to test it without like too much of a monetary investment in the physical product. So that has been a huge thing for the experiential side and for, creating real life situation, but digitally into something. And that also comes into like metaverse, and you go into this idea of like AR and VR. So metaverse itself, unfortunately, I also got a chance to work on Spotify Roblox, which is Roblox is basically a platform for kids to play in, like a metaverse for kids. And we just created a Roblox game where kids will be engaged with like an artist that is going to be on tour in person, right? But then they have the artist touring in metaverse as well. And they do like launch parties, and then the kids will be like bouncing characters in the foreground. So that's also a big one for 2023 as well.
Very interesting sharing. I mean, since you talk about, that few, key tools or, technology, I think that actually, the three of you actually covered like sort of like the key words that we, key topics that we are going to talk about today, right? Let's talk about 2024, directing this question to Rainy. The digital content and creative in 2024, what's the buzz? And then how do you see the shift in, creating content for digital? You talk about Midjourney, you even talk about like digital twin. Yeah, so where do you see like, the shift moving towards this year, instead of last year?
Yeah, I mean, this year, honestly, is very exciting for a few things. So a big one last year was also embracing your mental. The Gen Zs are more they embrace their emotional side much better than we have done in our past generation. So there's something called realness revolution. What it means is that they are able to embrace real emotions, therapy, or even the idea of like mental health about vulnerability and how brands can really use it for themselves. So for digital content in 2024, let's say you're a brand out here, you're trying to find out how do you engage that. You know, a great way is to really do like unfiltered moments, like having more of a way that you can truly communicate with the people that are looking at your stuff
Raw.
and its
Oh,
influence. Huh?
is it like raw, the words that
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like raw, really. Because, you know, they in 2021, honestly, like 51% of people aged from 18 to 29, they said that there are several days where they felt down and depressed, and hopeless, but nobody really talks about that. So Gen Z really helps to bring out that side of the society as a general. And how I came about with this is because last year I also worked on the project in the summer, and it is called Bummer Summer. Bummer, because summer, everyone thought that it's going to be like hot girl summer or like, you know, hot man summer. But the top search on Spotify itself is actually sad, which is one of the few top searches on it. And that says a lot about how people consume culture and consume music and entertainment now. They want to be in their fields. They wanted to understand a deeper part of themselves and able to, you know, cry in the shower, for example. But it does not mean that they are sad in general as a generation. It's just that they are more in tune with it. And so given that as an insight, right? So we created a campaign that talks about, you know, how we used to draw, like do journaling and like Dear Diary, or like, you know, your parents or your teacher wanted to do it in primary school. So I created a direction based on that, the idea of like using small stickers, or, you know, when you're a kid, you scribbles around, and that helps to bring out the concept of, you know, embracing your own emotions and into a creative campaign. Like speaking about for Design Never Sleeps itself, how do you bring that out as an insight into something that is fun and exciting and creative to look at? So that's number one. So if you're a brand out here, definitely tune into that. And then the second thing is something called kid doubts. So basically, kid doubts are kid adults. Is the idea of embracing play. So we see a preoccupied occupation with play and defer of like you know, adult responsibilities, and you know, everyone is trying to get into sipping into like play as a kind of refuge. So what I meant by that, not as a bad thing, but actually is good, because it meant that adults are more open to experiential events that has this play quality in them. So let's say if you're, you know, like Lego collectors, or I grew up, you know, with friends that collect toys, like the collectibles in cases. So that kind of embracing that side of yourself and to let that come out is a huge part of it. So that's the second one, kid doubts. And then the third one, yeah, it's really exciting and really fun in general. Like fun is really trying to come out in marketing now. And the third one I would say is to invest in creators, because creators are no longer working on the silo with the marketing funnel. They don't just be like a bucket that's just set on the side, but creators are good because they are held in culture, and they ensure that the partnerships are authentic enough to cut through and to avoid the ever fearing possibility of being canceled, right? the idea of like brands, oh, you're canceled because what. But having creators and influencers, they are 3 times more than likely to get to get you more return of your investment too, because they are the voice that speaks to the audience very authentically. So that goes into the number one, because they are more real. And that is something that I think a lot of brands should also look into, to craft that creator journey with your, with your influencers.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Definitely, these are the 3 key points that people, the marketers, should actually look into this year. I think since you actually talk about ROI, numbers, things like that, I believe a group of like people over here may be business owners. So I would like to actually direct the other question to Adrian. In terms of sales and revenue growth, what are the crucial insights that you see businesses should actually consider when it comes to like go-to-market strategies in 2024?
That's a very good question. Well, look, I think there's a number of things that we have to consider, but the most important one for this year is, regardless of any market and any country and any business or any business product or service that you've got to have a clear framework to work from. That's your anchor across the business as a business owner or a business lead or a senior leadership within that. And from that, a number of different tendrils or family tree style architecture flow. So, from that, you could agree a clear vision and business goals, make sure everybody is pulling on the same rope in the same way, making sure they understand where they play an important part in that organization. And that can be from having a conversation through to onboarding, having a really good, robust sort of best practice onboarding for new hires. But it's about instilling trust and collaboration and making sure people actually feel that they are empowered to go and make decisions. And as business owners, you've got to make sure that you're putting the right tools in place, you're training them, you're fostering that communication, and you're having town halls and just making sure that people are actually feel empowered and confident to be able to say, I've got an idea, please hear it. Particularly if you're a multi-geographical, like you've got, I don't know, 7 different markets across Southeast Asia, and every market is going to be different. But it automatically all comes down to, do you have what problem are you solving? And I spend a lot of time talking with small businesses and working with a lot of brands in Totally Awesome, where I work now, particularly in Gen Z, funnily enough, and Kidults. I was actually presenting to someone about Kidults today, funnily. You've got to be able to do your business basics. I call them the business basics. You've got to do your business basics well. So you've got to make sure that what problem are you solving? Does your products actually fit? Do they actually want it? Do they need it? Do they understand it? Can they get it easily? Is the pricing right? Is it culturally sensitive? And you've got to be agile enough to be able to shift that. Now, if you go back to AI, for example, you can go and tap into ChatGPT or Bard or any of them and go, tell me my business strategy. Just like you could go to a creative and go, tell me my creative strategy. But terrible data in is terrible data out. So you've got to be able to actually have the humans and the knowledge to be able to come back and hold a mirror to yourself, to be able to have that conversation with your customers, with your community, with your vendors, look at what the competition's doing and understand what it is that makes sense to do. And then how are your customers engaging? I mean, I try not to do anything without, unless it's new, without having some data to support an argument. And digital means that everything can be done. It can be tracked with data. It might be little, it might be big. But if you don't have a data strategy that you can analyze and then put forward projections against, then you've already begun to lose. And that becomes core to every single strategy and go-to-market strategy that exists within 2024. So understanding your customers, putting the data behind it, and then making sure that that they can buy or engage with what you have and what you want, and then compelling creative. it's all very well having a great service. No one can find it. If no one can understand it, if the creative messaging and the marketing messages don't make sense or are confused or don't work and don't land in a certain market, because one size does not fit all in APAC, anyone that does in Europe, then that becomes a real challenge. And that's, I think, where these guys can probably add massive value, whether it's asset or content management or just experiential marketing, I would suggest.
Yeah, interesting. But definitely in the digital space right now, there are, a lot of like restrictions, including like things like cookies, things like that. So sometimes may actually need like a business to actually work with, another partner to actually to make it more insightful, because a single data is just a data. It may not give any insights, right? So since Jean, you actually work in like late stage startup before. Just want to actually hear a little bit, from you, since you do a lot of like partnership, right? So partnership and data driven insights, right? How do you see these two items dance together? Any example of how businesses can actually use the data to stay ahead in the fast changing landscape? Do you have some example to share with everyone? Sorry, Jean, you're on mute. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, yeah. So can you hear me? Yeah. Right. So by analyzing, data trends, market trends, right? Companies can, pinpoint potential partners that you would like to work with, with expertise or resources that they lack to, penetrate into a specific market or target audience, right? So taking, for example, Gen Z millennials. So working with, the company, again, depending on what is your angle. So working with or partnering with different companies or partners to collaborate with expertise and resources that you yourself lack. So that allows, to expand your reach, let's say in different markets, for example, without going at it alone. And it can, they will definitely shorten and, having a shortcut to that process, because that expert has that relevant number of years of experience, in that specific market or the target sector, target market that you want to go into, as well as, sharing data, for example, sharing operational data. How do you streamline processes? So looking at, using different tools, using data, different AI tools, there's so many different AI tools out there in the market, or even like CRM tools to streamline your, for example, sales operations. So give an example, right? For example, I mean, Google partners with a lot of small AI startups to, really gain access to different technologies and really speed up the entire process. Even ChatGPT, working with different different industries. Of course, the industries, they have to allow them access to their data, right? And with ChatGPT coming in, you can actually quicken up the entire process to, say, streamline a specific industry's processes, or like using in different departments. And that really helps to improve efficiency and productivity, which is the buzzword for improving sales and operations, right? So yeah, with, data-driven insights and working in together with partners or potential companies that you can collaborate with, that definitely speeds up the entire process itself.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So next question will be to Rainy, because Rainy, we know that you are someone in the creative side. So I want to chat a little bit like in terms of balancing the art and commerce, you see. So how do you how do you keep like creative juice like flow while also making sure that the business sides stay happy? Because sometimes being too creative can be complicated for people who may not in that space or may not be that creative, right?
Yeah, this is a great question, by the way, and really, really challenging to answer in the right way. But the main part of it is super challenging to even do that. And the reason why is because marketing's like commerce business and creatives are basically working like oil and water, but in the sense that there are different needs to be solved on both sides. And this part, the marketers are always needing content fast, not great content late, right? But the creative side is always, okay, we want the great content, but the time has to be sacrificed. So I think everyone here knows about this like Venn diagram of, speed, affordability, and quality, right? You can only pick 2 out of 3. You can't pick all 3. So on our side, yeah, it's definitely not a small feat for sure. And to make sure that the business side stays happy, at the same time, creative juices are, flowing as well. So one of the biggest thing that we do is we have this middle person or this structure that is called the design operations. So just like business operations or marketing operations, like itself, you need something called design operations. And what they do is they help to be part of bring the 2 teams together and to create consistency to everything your company does. So like think of like product management, but for the design program. So for example, at Design Never Sleeps, we have a design operations where the designers get the right tools and processes to create their best work, but they will not be bogged down by delighting they're like going for meetings or bogged with unnecessary tasks. So the flow state of designers and creatives will not be bogged down between meetings and suffering like, analysis paralysis or forgetting the next step in the process. So you need someone to kind of like filter that out. And that's what we call like design operations in Design Never Sleeps. And then the other thing is really to help align very early in the game. So for our latest processes that work really well is when we bring creatives and the marketing side, marketers, into the same page at the same time. So they would bring without the creative support, like getting to know them that without the creatives they are also there to make a difference in the outcome. It's not just the commerce side, like having to say in that, but creatives are also helping it to make sure that the content stay great right from the beginning and to be part of the brainstorming session that could work well. So it is always like a balancing trick to balance out both sides. And I think what Jean also mentioned too is about partnerships. I think collaborating with visionaries is very important, that we can have certain resources and certain kind of background thinking and insights with partners could really help to bring out more of the creative juices on our side too, because then all the creatives loves to understand about more and more things. Like curiosity is a very big part of this game in general. So working in partnerships like Storm, like you guys, and like with Adrian, it really helps to spearhead that, and creatives will get their take on becoming a big part of it.
Thanks for sharing. I think we can also hear, from Adrian coming from the business side, you see, things are moving very fast. And we know that, Adrian, you also manage quite a sizable leading cross-functional teams. So could you actually share with us like a key lesson in terms of leading this group of people to achieve the strategy objective, especially in this fast-paced digital landscape?
I can. Yeah, I can. I'll give you a real example, actually. Not so many years ago, I won't say when and who, because you can probably work it out from my LinkedIn. I was brought in to consult for a company that had raised quite a lot of money, which should never have been awarded because they were quite confused, shall we say. It had not gone well. They had opposing board members. There were senior resignations and leadership, massive knowledge drain because everyone was resigning. It was just a nightmare, and the revenue went like that. And I've seen this so many times in companies, like big companies I've been into, and in London or in Singapore, and smaller companies here. And particularly when you've got multi-geographies, whether it's multi-Southeast Asia or Australia, Asia, London, Dubai, whatever. And actually, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. You've got to have a really clear vision. So this was a nightmare. So I went in, had a long conversation with the guys, and didn't even think I was going to win the business because I was quite blunt. Went in and went, what are you actually trying? What problem are you trying to solve? It's the one question I ask every single company. If I ever interview, if I go for a job, if I consult with someone, what are you trying to solve, and why should you be able to solve it? So many companies are great at marking their own homework, but never think about the customer. They never 180 the vision. Probably a bit like building creators, right? We've got a studio here, and we work with a lot of creative companies. And they go, I want everything, and I want it now, but I don't know what I want, and I don't know how much it is, and I want it free, and I want it last year. Exactly, 100%. And the reality is, you have to sit and work with the stakeholders, and generally might have quite big egos, and unpack exactly what they want, what they don't want, how you can optimize to a very specific KPI or objective, because quite often they want opposing ones, which just doesn't work. Even if you threw $1 million at it, it wouldn't work. You'd have to do it in stages. And then from there, start to then deploy. You can sort of manage P&L and cost efficiencies to make sure that, you don't, if you're testing things or split testing or doing dynamic creative optimization of different type of, whether it's red or blue or this message or this call to action, there's many things you can do, but you have to control it within budget and within clear, demonstrable, data-driven outputs, so that you can say, this worked, this didn't, let's do this, or not be afraid to walk away. And this is a conversation I was having with a company at the end of last year. The company isn't working. They spent quite a lot of their own money. They raised money, they had investor money, and they were duty bound to their team and everything else. I totally understand that. But they'd been trading a year longer than they probably should have done. And it was like, you can walk away from this. You should walk away from this, because eventually you won't have a choice. So do it in the right way now, or go and seek mentorship or counsel or something. But don't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. Look at the data, talk to partners. I'm a firm believer in partnerships, or talk to mentors or just different people in the industry, and more importantly, your customers. And don't be afraid to pivot or, God forbid, close. And that's exactly the message I would say in 2024, when there's a lot less money in the world that's being spent on marketing. You've got to get it right. You've got to embrace guerrilla tactics, which are cheap, not cheap, but effective, cost efficiencies, we shouldn't say cheap ever, cost efficiencies, and ensure that we drive that result in the right way, whether it's creative, which is incredibly important, through to content marketing, through to buying advertising, through to CRM and technology platforms, or using AI in the right way. I saw Rainey nodding profusely there. I know she might want to add something.
I do actually. if you don't mind, and I would love the fact that marketing now doesn't sit in silo too. Marketing is part of partnership as a whole business unit too. So they used to be separate in organizations, like in verticals, but it's such a missed opportunity when we don't have partnerships in part of that. So for example, the more one of the success story that happened was companies that can partner their sports angle with their a different part of their vertical. So those are the kind of companies that are able to be flexible at this time of the time that we're in right now, when there's some money is crunching, and money is, we don't have deep pockets anymore. So a lot more of this you will see more of these cross partnerships happening, and that's what I've been seeing here in the US, much more than what was happening last year as well. Yeah, that's all I want to add on to.
I just add one more thing as well, because I think it's very pertinent. You're absolutely right. Marketing used to sit as a silo. Everything used to sit as silos, and now everything has become centralized, partly for cost efficiencies, partly because omni-channel and just generally business cut through needs to act as a single unit across everything. You have different departments and divisions who control costs or spend, but ultimately which rolls up to a consolidated P&L, but ultimately everything goes together. But the amount of times people say to me, I don't sell. If you're a smaller business, everybody sells. Now, sales might not be hard selling on the phone, you know, trading stock and all that kind of stuff, but everybody sells, and everyone in the business comes back to that core value and business objectives, right? Identify customers, focus on value selling, which leads the marketing strategy, which leads the sales of the asset or the product or service, which then leads to the data to then continue to self-optimize and optimize the creative and optimize everything at the same time. And because there is less money in the world, and I can't stress that enough, yes, embrace omni-channel strategy and omni-channel digital strategy. So test multiple different things, gamify it so people are more likely to do more things with you, for you, but also focus on exceptional service for your customers, because it takes a lot of money and time and effort to win customers and to convince them to spend money once. They're more likely to spend money with you if they've already spent money with you. The acquisition cost doesn't change, and that time and that hard fixed OPEX or CAPEX cost to deliver it doesn't change. So it's much easier to maintain and retain business than continue and increase the lifetime value of that customer, whoever it is, whether it's B2B or B2C, it doesn't matter, than actually doing something from scratch and every time going, right, I need more customers. Keep the wheel going with the existing customers and pivot the business and give them more things and more games and more gamification so that they engage with you more and do more things, I would say.
Yeah, I think the best thing about digital space is, like, you know, you can build on it, you can keep it, and then you can reach people further away from where you are. I think that's what, you know, the key, and we can see that a lot of like products or companies are also moving towards that, you know, things like that. So very, very good sharing. I think the question about authentic engagement pretty much actually answered by, you know, speakers here. I think before that, maybe could I ask the audience, do you have any question? If you have any question, feel free to actually type it up and, you know, ask in the chat box, and the speakers will actually answer the question. Okay, so any burning question that you have for the speakers? Okay, so someone actually private messaged me. You know, this person is asking like whether can actually share a little bit of like sneak peek into a project where data insights were being used to make marketing campaign shine. Any like clear example? You know, any of the speakers who want to take up?
Can you reframe that question? I'm not quite sure I understand.
Yeah, they asked, can you give us a sneak peek into a project where data insights were used to make a market campaign shine?
I can give an answer on that if you like, and
Let me
it
throw
flow-
it. Yeah.
flows into creative anyway, so I'm sure Rainy or Jean might want to jump in. I was recently working with a company who wanted to drive more installs and usage, so two slightly different composing KPIs of their app, or their content destination app. And the way we did it was we created some really cool creative and calls to action and ran them against different customer personas. Now, those customer personas, because digital, there's so much data just sitting around in the digital space, if you know how to harness it and activate on it, less soon because the cookies are going away. You can create cohorts of people and you can go and market a specific creative and a call to action to that group of similar people, I don't know, young mums or high net worth men or whatever in Australia or something. So you can really start to drill into that. But what we started to realize quite quickly is our assumption of the profile that we thought we would actually get wasn't landing. And we tried multiple different types of creative. We tried sequenced creative, and we looked at all the data, and actually it was a completely different persona that no one had even identified with a slightly wacky left field creative, which we all love, which actually then delivered a massive uptick in growth, which then allowed them off the back of that. And we did that. We found that over about 45 days. So it didn't take long. And it was a very controlled spend in a particular test market. They now had to take that and then deploy that into other markets and see if it's the same and tweak the creative and then see if that lands again. So that's where the data-driven aspect comes into it massively. But that's allowed them to create completely different products and different services. Well, reposition slightly, retool slightly existing ones, but not create something new. And that's already given them what I imagine will be 12 to 15% uplift in revenue, and actual revenue, not sales, by the summer, I would have thought, which is fascinating. And that's all from using data-driven digital marketing.
Interesting sharing. So I hope that answered your question. We do have a few other questions. For startup with limited budget, how can they embrace the same level of creatives like the big boys? Maybe this question is not for Rainy. So for startup, when you have limited budget, right, how do you actually embrace the same level of creatives like the big boys? Jean, Adrian?
Do you want to take that one, Jane, or I can if you like? No, I'll go, please.
Yeah, here you go. You go.
Wait, who is speaking?
We'll have the speaking hat on. Well, I can throw something out there. The first thing is you can't embrace the same level of spend of the big boys as you can with the small boys, because it's just not possible. Someone like a Unilever spends a very, very, very large amount of money compared to maybe a small startup in Singapore or Philippines or Malaysia or something. So you've got to be incredibly clear on what you want to achieve. Now, there are different ways to produce creative. AI can do it, but it's not great. And again, the prompt is everything. But even then, you still have to have the strategy behind it. And that's what these guys are really good at, is that if you don't have a strategy, you can't tell something that's producing it to produce something that works. And if you don't then run it in the right way and sequence it in the right way and track it, then you're never going to know. And you're never going to know what works and what doesn't. And we can call it split testing, A/B testing, multifaceted testing. There's lots of different phrases for it. So it's more about doing more with less and maybe iterating specific creatives that you know will work for slightly different audiences, or have a blue one, a red one, a slightly different word on a call to action or something, unless it's experiential. Though I can't talk so much for experiential marketing these days in this part of the world. I know Rainy and Jean probably can, but I think we've got to be really careful about how we spend and control the spend of our budgets. And the great thing is, if you're buying something like Google DV360, it allows you to cap the bids. You can spend a little bit of money at a very targeted audience, to a point, that would allow you to understand what that data results is. And you can extrapolate that data out or use an AI tool to extrapolate it for you.
Rainy, I think, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree with you, Adrian. I think a big part of spending is, I also go back to, let's say as a startup, is to really understand the kind of target that you're going for, and also speaking in their language. So for example, if what you want to drive home is to have more, to tap into this market of Gen Z audiences that do certain things, I think one thing where we have to go further down is understanding their like their culture, really, and how you can speak in the language that's personalized towards them. So we have done quite a few like A/B testing too, like what Adrian mentioned, and we realized that even though this is a big project and bigger budgets and stuff, but we realized that with all the campaigns, big budget also have failed campaigns too, like even more so. But one of the more successful campaigns out there are those that personalize and giving the audience a way to choose and pick what they want in their own thing. So what I meant by that is they don't go for things they're given to them anymore as how it is. But people likes to, in terms of Gen Z audiences, they like to be able to mix and match their own unique capsule or unique package. So if you're able to speak on that and then, you know, come up with creative ways of how you can use that as a one-liner and get your creative team or yourself to come up with ideas of how you can talk about personalization. That's one big thing for your company with the budget that you have could come out of that. And I also do stand by the fact that it's a creator culture, it's a creator world now. So if you have small influencers, micro influencers that you know are unique and very raw in the space that you're in, definitely capture that and definitely like try to talk something like a deal out of that if you need help on the creator side, and then they will be able to, you know, harness that part of the world for you.
Let me just build one more thing on that, because I think it'll be very pertinent for everyone on this call who may or may not have followed what's going on with cookies. But Google is removing the ability to target people based on their tracked preference, anonymized tracked preference, which is how most digital, a lot of digital marketing has worked for the last God knows how many years. Because there's concerns around data privacy and targeting and leakage, and particularly with Gen Zs and even Gen Alphas and the parents of Gen Alphas, so even younger. There has been a move to move. There's been a role to move away from using cookies. So now it's about contextualization. It's about creating audience segments who have similar interests and having incredibly powerful and strong creatives that will target that audience, who will then hopefully interact with that ad creative. That's where you no longer can operate in silos. You have to operate as a single organism, from a value proposition through to a problem solve, through to a benefit, through to a sale, particularly in digital, and then track that. So it's just really important to understand that with the cookies going away this year, and 1% of it's already gone, or going in Q1, then contextual and audience contextual rather than page contextual, which reads the content on a page, because it can't tell a good article from a bad article sometimes, it's going to be the future of the way that digital advertising is bought. So compelling creative and interest groups for high value audiences is the way to go. We can share more on that if anyone's ever interested. Reach out to me.
Yeah, definitely second that. So there's another question that is pretty relevant to what you actually were talking about. The best way to actually build an online community in 2024. Any suggestion on the platform strategy or tactic? I think before, you know, any of the speakers actually talk about it, I think today I also attended quite an interesting webinar where, you know, the Gen Alpha is pretty hooked up in this thing called Skippily Toilet. And we sort of already know, sort of like Skippily Toilet is like a series of like videos, but how it actually got, you know, so trendy is not just because of the original videos. People are actually using the feature, the graphic itself, to create more and more different other content, and it becomes, you know, YouTube. You know, you probably see a lot of like different similar relevant kind of like you know, cartoon going around in YouTube. I mean, my son is pretty hooked up in that, the Gen Alpha. So I'm not sure, you know, with the speakers here, any other sort of like thoughts in terms of like building online community in 2024, not just on Gen X or Gen Z or, you know, Alpha, it could be like Gen Y, Gen X, you know, any thoughts on that, building online community, probably for the older generation too?
So maybe I'll go ahead first. Well, there are many different platforms out there, you know, from Telegram. You can build it through Telegram. Recently, I also came across a new social media platform, and not sure if you guys know This platform is called Lemonade. It's also actually it's also by ByteDance. But I guess because Lemonade now there are a lot of Gen Zs and alphas on Gen Alphas on this platform. Perhaps it's also because there's less advertising and all. It's more authentic, but there are specific topics that people will generally veer towards in Lemonade. So again, it depends on what is your product or services, or what's the outcomes that you want to. So for example, if you're going B2B, definitely be on LinkedIn, right? So there are many different platforms out there. The best way, perhaps you can speak to us, me and Rini, separately. We can, be able to advise you what are the specific strategy or tactics by understanding your business first, because we do not know which business or industry are in. So again, depends. Yep, that's my answer.
And I'll throw one out there as well. And I sound a bit like a broken record now, but the question would be, what problem, and that was a really good answer, by the way, and I 100% agree, but why are you trying to build a new community? What problem are you solving by creating this community that doesn't already exist? Why, or isn't servicing it well enough, or something else? There's got to be a fundamental reason, business reason, for creating a new community to deliver something to that community where they can't get it from something else, like a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group or Lemonade or something else that already exists. So I would just throw that out, because it can cost quite a lot of money to create a community, and it will cost even more to continue to maintain that community. So there's got to be a fundamental reason outside of I want to sell things, which is marking one's own homework, to I want to provide this value-added benefit or benefits for them, and therefore they will then give me money in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, definitely. The way of calculating customer value, lifetime value is probably different right now, right?
Yes.
The cost to it also. Yeah. So one last question, I think very interesting, because our time actually sort of like passed pretty quickly. For consumer product, is there an audience drawback from AI generated content advertisement? There are many contents generated by AI. We can't even differentiate now. Any drawback from the consumer?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So there's something called, I think we all know about deep fake, where scams are being created based on someone prominent talking about a situation that person did not even mention. So yes, I would say yes and no. Yes, because people are more skeptical towards, okay, is this real in general? Or is that kind of like, they're kind of like second guessing themselves and saying, okay, actually that person is speaking something real, but they thought that that person was fake. So there was a lot of that. But in terms of the advertising itself, the other funny thing is also that people tend to, based on research, but we will never know, because this is kind of like a new thing that we just started, last year, right? But based on research, people are more receptive towards AI generated content because for some reason it seems more authentic. So it's a whole different, like, how is that? But that, based on the data, actually says that it seems that it's more authentic towards it. So there's two slices of two totally opposite point of view right here. And yeah, and it's easy to fall in a hole of this fear and despair of knowing whether AI will be currently something that's carry on forever. But also I want to let you guys know that the ascent of AI generated influencers in China's e-commerce is huge right now. So everyone, I think people that has done e-commerce and online shopping, China, they do a lot of live streaming, and when the night goes down and people are sleeping and stuff, they actually clone a version of themselves selling the products on a live streaming platform without, you know, everyone else, the rest of the world watching it. So it is really like a drawback, or is it more so something that more markets in e-commerce could leverage on and make use of that, so that they can use, you know, they can pay a lesser on this budget, where they get a real person to be standing there. So that's something to be figured out too at this time. But I find it very fascinating to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, as a consumer, if you think about how food advertisement is being created, right? I mean, all along you know that the food is not real, right? But you still buy the burger that you actually saw on the advertisement. See,
Yeah.
Adrian?
But there is an argument, right, to say where should it ethically stop, and what is acceptable? Because there's two things, right? One is that you can produce AI creatives, which, if you're not very careful, can slip through multiple people and agencies who are supposed to check all this and proof it. I won't say who, but there was a big hoo-ha in London last year with a very large FMCG, FMCG company. Just you can Google it and find it. Where they used I think it was the London Underground. They used an image. They didn't check it. There were too many fingers, and it was just something that they thought they'd get away with it. It was probably someone hung over and just went, "I'll do that," and put it out to the client. That's one thing. So that's just bad creative, and that's why you should never do that. The second thing is you can now get entire influencers who don't exist online. And this is the new space, the AI influencers. And I'll put a link to something in the chat that I was reading the other day, which is an example of that. There was a Spanish one who, as far as anyone's aware, is a real person producing articles and videos and video to camera, but she doesn't exist. And ethically, is that okay? I don't think anyone has an answer, but it's something that one should consider. And I've just put that link in the chat for anyone who's interested to see it.
Yeah, it's interesting about AI influencers. So in Asia, I think there's this one called Ray, and apparently, this AI influencer Ray got a lot of sponsored what they call it, brands come to her, yeah. And she pay this AI influencer. But apparently Ray is, I think it was created by if I'm not wrong, Dentsu. So that's one of the agencies that actually created this AI influencer called Ray. But it's very interesting, like where this will head towards. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's scary. So how AI is actually taking over the world in so many different aspects.
Exactly.
All right. So I'm sorry to say so that we have to end this session. Very interesting and engaging talk with everyone. So here are some of the QR codes that you can actually connect with the speakers here. If you would like to actually learn a little bit more, or even get them to actually sort of like analyze professionally your business and provide you some of the advice, or feel free to actually reach out to them. You can just scan the QR code. Okay, I'll go through the step on how to do so later. Yeah. Okay, so you can also find the links in the chat box. I actually shared the links over there. Okay. So thank you very much, Jean, Rainy, and Adrian today for your insightful sharing. Okay, so the way of connecting with the expert would be you can actually scan QR code, go to the page, click the arrange meeting button, and then proceed with the booking process. Okay, so that's one way you can actually do so. There are also other experts on the platform, so that's what we actually do at Startup Storm.
Thank you, Jesslyn.
Right. So I'll leave it here. Leave the page here. If anyone who would like to actually do some scanning, feel free to do so. And then I think that's the end of the session today. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jesslyn. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.